This is the second half of the video to teach you how to make a skateboard commercial. Alright, so what I did off camera since the other video is I went ahead and started making all my tracks smaller by using the ripple edit tool. So all the tracks, they're still all the same length inside if I want to change anything, but I made it shorter, so I'm trying to keep it at this 1 minute mark. So you see I have mine going over a little bit, so I'm going to condense everything down a little bit more to make sure it ends here. And I also have to have time for my logo and stuff to come in on here and a little bit of text. So one thing I wanted to show you about the markers, speaking of that, something was happening while I was working on it where my marker kept on moving. As I was doing the ripple edits on all the tracks, my marker kept moving too, and I kept having to move it back at the 1 minute mark. And what I learned is if you go up here to markers, make sure that this is unchecked. You don't want ripple sequence markers to be checked. So once I uncheck that, then my marker that I have at 1 minute stayed there, and it stopped moving. So make sure you do that so that your marker will stay in the same place as you're doing the ripple edits to all your video tracks. And so what I did on the audio track as well is, I had a lot more audio than I needed. I only want them to have little bits and pieces of the dialogue that I got. So what I did is I went and I pulled down on another audio track all the audio that I want to keep. I just pulled it down on the track below. And then this track here has all the audio that I don't think I'm going to use. So I went ahead and muted that and locked it. And I'm probably not going to use that. I do have some empty spots in the audio, and that is exactly what I do want, because I'm going to go and get some music and put a music soundtrack on there and maybe some sound effects of skateboard grinding and stuff like that to add that in there as well. But I kind of just wanted to show you at this point what I have so that when you're making yours you can kind of see the process that you go through about pulling the audio down on another track on the ones you're going to keep and just muting out the stuff that you're not going to keep. Eventually I'll delete that, but I want to save it for now in case there's something else that I want to do. Alright, so I went on Pixabay and I used those links that I provided you with some links to Pixabay's sound and music selections that they have. So I put some in a folder or in a bin and I double clicked it and added it to my project window here so that I could use them. So let me double click on that, and I drug this song down into the bottom here, and I was looking for something that's just kind of lo-fi chill to go with this. I think it'll work pretty good, but when I play it you're going to hear that it's just completely drowning out the audio. So I'm going to show you how to edit the audio so that you can lower it so that the talking will still be, so you can still hear it.
What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?
I think it'd be his perspective on whether or not he's a skateboarder. He could be a fan of skateboarding or actually.
Okay, so you can see it's just completely drowning out any of the dialogue. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. There's a couple different ways. There's a way you can do it where it automatically ducks, which means ducking just means lowering the volume of the music so that you can hear the volume of the audio. But I kind of like to do that on my own and not automatically. And you'll also see in this bin over here that I have different skateboard sounds, like the grinding and the wheels moving and stuff like that, and I'm going to throw those in last. So let me show you how you can edit your audio track. I'm going to double click this track here so that it expands it so I can see it better, and you'll see that there's this line that goes across all the way over here. I think they call that a rubber band, and you can edit that with your pen tool. And if you don't see that, I believe that you can click on this wrench tool and ask it to show that. I think it's audio keyframes. So if you don't see this little white line going across here, you could probably find it by clicking on that. Alright, so with this pen tool, what you can do is make points to make it, I'll show you. Make a point where you want to make some changes. These are keyframes that I'm making here. So let's say I want to make it lower right there. I can just make these two dots on either side of it to make that maintain the volume, and then I can put this little dip in it to make it get quieter. And then actually when this starts talking here, I really lose lose what the guy's saying. So I definitely want to pull this down quite a bit more. So let's try that out.
What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?
I think it'd be his perspective on whether.
Okay, so it's still a little bit too loud. I think I need to make this volume a little bit louder. So I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to go over here with the pen tool and just I'm going to click on it once and just bring it up so that the whole volume is louder than, instead of just making it a dip or a rise, I'm just going to make the whole thing louder. Let's check that out.
What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?
I think it'd be his perspective on whether or not he's a skateboarder. He could be a fan of skateboarding or an actual skateboarder.
All right, so I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole thing because it takes a really long time to tweak it, but I think I've given you enough knowledge here that you can go in and use that pen tool here and change this rubber band to edit the volume so you can make it a little bit softer, or you can make it louder where it needs to be. And that's pretty much how you do that manually. Like I said, there is a way to do it automatically with ducking, but I think it comes out a lot better if you just manually put these pinpoints in here. They're called keyframes actually. Make these keyframes and, you know, adjust the volume accordingly. So one thing you have to be careful of when you're mixing is to not clip, which means make the volume too loud. So if you go over here on this, you can see when it turns red. So I'm going to play mine, what I've been mixing so far, and let you see what happens.
What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?
I think it'd be his perspective
right
on
there,
whether or not
clipped.
he's a skateboarder. He could be a fan of skateboarding or an actual skateboarder.
If you put in enough time to learn how to do pretty proper kickflip or
All right, so you see my volume is starting to mix out. It sounds better. I did clip one time. I don't think that's a huge deal. I want to make sure that my dialogue is still loud enough, but just be careful that you're not overcompensating and making everything really loud. You do not want to hit the clip mark there, you know, too much. I just hit it one time with that guy's voice, but you know, beware of that. And then another thing you can do, let's go ahead and open up the essential sound. So when we open this up here, it lets us do some extra things to our audio tracks. So you can actually set things on dialogue and music and sound effects and ambience. So let's say I want to like change this to this right here and click on dialogue. It lets you have all these edits for it. You can enhance the speech, you can make it louder, you can repair it, fix the clarity, you can EQ it. There's different presets so you can make it sound, you know, different effects on there. So you can experiment with some of these things too when you're mixing your audio. All right, so the next thing I want to do is go in and add some different sound effects, but you can see that I'm out of video tracks. Let me use my plus key to zoom in. You can see I don't have any more audio tracks, not video tracks. So to add a new track, video or audio, you click on one of the tracks, you right click on it, and you can just say add track. So take your time trying to find clips that fit the action properly. Like I have this one clip here that sounds good for this clip, for this video clip, but I have to like fade it out at the end. So you'll notice, watch this.
just be stubborn about trying to put it.
So I didn't want that sound to keep going into the next skateboarder because it wasn't, you know, it didn't really fit the action. So make sure you just put these clips in the right spot and then just use these rubber bands to fade out the audio when the picture fades away so that it fits good. Remember, when you're working on your audio tracks, if you're having a hard time seeing everything, you can always come over here to this middle bar and hover your mouse over that, and then you can pull this up so you can see all the video tracks that you're adding. And always use plus if you want to zoom in and minus if you need to zoom out on your tracks. When you're ending your video, so I'm going to put my time indicator here at this 1 minute marker. Make sure that all your audio tracks and your video tracks too, they all end at 1 minute. So you want to have the volume fade out at the end. You don't want it to just abruptly just cut off. So make sure everything is down all the way to the bottom at the very end so that it's faded, and that you just let it fade out gradual so that it doesn't cut off quickly. You can also do the same thing with your video too. So if you want to change like the opacity and you want something to fade out, you can also use this pen tool on the rubber bands of your video and have things fade out that way too. And that way you can see it kind of just fades to black so that at 1 minute it's gone. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mute those because it gets really annoying when you're finishing out your video editing when you keep hearing all the sound over and over again. So it's a good idea to just go ahead and mute that. I can also delete this track here. That was the extra audio that I don't want anymore. So I can right click on there and I can just say delete that track. And now I just have tracks that I'm using. All right, since I'm done with my audio and I have that muted, I'm gonna go ahead and go over here and just pull this down so that I have more room up here to finish some of my video things. There were a couple of tools that I wanted to show you that we didn't get to yet. I didn't really use them, but I want to show you what they are. If you ever want to select, let's say I wanted to select somewhere in the middle and I wanted to move everything forward from here forward, you can use this track here, select forward and select backward. So I didn't really need to do that, but you see when I click on that, it lets me move everything that I clicked on and forward. And there's the backward one too. The other tool that I didn't really use, but you can use it, is the rolling edit tool. It lets you go in between video clips and change, like we made this one longer and that one shorter. So it didn't change the time of the whole video, but it just extended like the cut between the two. Like it made this video longer and this one shorter. So that's another tool you can use. And then we also have this rate stretch tool. So if you click on that, if you want to make something go kind of slow motion, you can click on that and pull it out and make it last longer so it moves slower, or you can squish it together and make something like go faster. All right, I want to import the logo that I'm going to use in my video. So I'm going to go over here to my project panel. And I'm going to double click here and navigate to my folder that has graphics, and I'm going to import the Spitfire logo. So I'm going to put my time indicator over there near the end. I'm going to drag this PNG right here, and you can see it comes in like that, and I want to definitely have it fade off at the end. So let me scoot it over a little bit, and obviously we need to change the size of it. So over here in the source window, you can also click on effect controls. And you can see that in these effect controls, like I have this clip selected right here. Let me select this clip right here. In effect controls, you can see how I put those keyframes with the pen tool. They also put them here. So over here on the right hand side of the effect controls is basically a little mini timeline. So if I wanted to move how I had this fade from full opacity to lower opacity, I can change those over here by moving them around. Okay, so we'll get more into that into another project, but I just wanted you to know what that is there. So I want to actually be working on this clip here, and I want to make it smaller. So what you can do is over here in effect controls, you can go over here where it says scale and click right on top of where that says 100. You can see it gave me a finger with those arrows. I can pull it up or down like this. So I want to have it smaller like that. Now let's say I want to animate it. Maybe I want it to like end up to be this size, but I want it to start out a different size. You can put the timeline here, and you can go over, whoops, we need to click on it. You can click on scale or position. We'll do scale for now. So I want it to start out at this size. So in order to enable an animation or some type of transformation, I have to click this little stopwatch there. That means to toggle the animation, and it gave me a keyframe. See, it gave me this little diamond shaped thing there. So I want to have one keyframe there because I want it to be that size, and maybe I want it to come over here, and by the time we get to this point in the video, maybe I want it to be maybe I want it to just be bigger. Actually, I'm going to go all the way to the end. What if at the very end, and put another keyframe, and then maybe I make it really big, so I zoomed all the way in to it like that. And maybe I want it to fade out. I'm going to do the opacity with the pen tool. So let me put a keyframe here, and here, here and here so that it fades out. So notice how when I use the pen tool to make these opacity changes, it put it in the little keyframes up here in this mini timeline. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, I don't really like that, but at least you can see how to do that. I'm gonna probably just edit this more off camera because I like to experiment, but I at least wanted to show you how you can animate some things, size, the opacity. You can even also, let me select that track or this video track again. You can change the position of it so you can have it slide off the camera from one side to the other. I also want to show you how you can change the position of the graphic. So if I click on this track to make sure it's enabled, go up here again to Effect Controls, see where it says Position. This is the X-axis and this is the Y-axis. So you can go like this on the X-axis, you can move it up and down on the Y-axis. So you can either just position it there and leave it, or you can hit the stopwatch to create an animation and add more keyframes to do that. So I have my logo the way I want it to be, like this. I have it coming in and getting a little smaller and then just kind of fading away at the end. What I want to do next is add some text that goes along with that. So I'm going to put the time indicator where I want this text. Now I can just get the text tool right here and just start typing, but I want to show you the Essential Graphics panel. So if you go over to Window and click Essential Graphics, it comes with some pre-made text animations so that you don't really have to animate anything by using the timeline. I have a bunch of different ones added in here, but you can look through and see what you like, and if you want to use one, you just drag it in. So I'll just try this one here. You just drag it and drop it in. Let's play that. All right, we're going to go ahead and go with that just for the heck of it because I don't want to spend too much time going through these. You can try them all out, but that looks pretty decent. So I want to edit that, obviously. I don't want it to say tap for sound. So I'm going to get my text tool and I'm going to click inside this text. I'm going to do Control A to select all of it. And I'm going to type what I actually want it to say. All right, now if I wanted to change the color of it, you can change the fill, you can have a stroke, a background, a shadow. It lets me change the shape, which is that little line right there. So all the parameters to edit are over here. If you want to center something, it's here. If you want it to be left justified, and so forth. So I think you get the idea there. I think I want to move that. No, I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to add another little sentence down here, but I don't like how low that is. So I'm going to have to move that up because we have to have a safe zone around the edge. This is pretty much at the bottom of where that should be. Click this plus here, click Safe Margins, and drag that down here so that I can use that as one of my tools. Say OK, and then click on it. So this gives me the safe margins where I'm supposed to keep all my text. So I want to make sure that I don't type anything outside of those guidelines right there. So I went in and added a tagline at the very end, but I did it the same way as I did the Spitfire Wheels text, so just follow the same directions for that. So I want to have this text, Spitfire Wheels, at the beginning of my video too. I'm going to change it to be the title, but I want that same animation and text to be at the beginning. So I'm going to click on that clip there and copy it, Control C. I'm going to go back to the beginning of my video and paste it right here. And I'm probably going to make it a little bit longer. And the narrator is saying what makes a skateboarder a skateboarder. And that's really the title of this video. So I'm going to go back in and type that in here. Okay, so that's obviously way too big there. So over here you can see, just like in Photoshop and the other Adobe programs, we have tracking. So that VA with the arrow under it, I can squeeze the letters together by dragging over there. So you can edit text in here just like you would any of the other Adobe softwares, just in a different place. And then I want to make the text maybe a little bit smaller. And remember, I want to stay inside those safe margins. And I'm probably going to change the color of it because I think the white text doesn't really show up Well, it will show up good there, but it doesn't show up very good here. So I want to make sure that, let me select it again, that maybe I have a shadow on it that's a little bit stronger. Right now the shadow is black, which is fine, but I want to make it a lot darker. Oh, it's at 87%. Let's make it at 100%. Maybe spread it out a little bit. Let's try that. Yep, that's pretty good. So the last thing I want to try on here is some color grading and effects like that. So what you need to do is go over here to your project window, and if you click on these little arrows right here, click and hold, it says effects. We're going to do a couple of different effects. So I'm going to click on effects. One thing we're going to do is video transitions. I want to put like just a dissolve in between each one of my clips, because right now they're just abruptly changing from one to another. And let me see what that looks like. I need to mute my audio because I was listening to the whole thing a minute ago, but I don't want to listen to it now. Let me see how that transition looks. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put cross dissolve in between all these. And you, instead of doing what I did where you made the opacity fade out that way, you can also put cross dissolves and dip to black, but anyway, I like to use that pen tool and do it that way. And we can also have a cross dissolve at the very beginning so that it comes in slowly, starts off black and goes like that. So if you want to try editing any color on your video, you can open up some of these things here. I'm going to open up this Lumetri presets here and just show you basically how you can do them. You can just experiment with them. I don't know what all these do, so I would just try them out by clicking on, dropping them on top of one of the video clips that you want to experiment with. So I have this one selected here in my first clip. I'm just going to grab this one, I have no idea what it'll do, drop it on my clip. Okay, so you can see how it edited the color a little bit. So just feel free to try them out. I'm kind of thinking I want something that looks more summery and gold, so I might try something like that. But go ahead and feel free to experiment with all these by just dragging them on the clip that you want to edit. Alright, I'm done adding my color grading to my video clips just to give them a little bit more of a high contrast, warm summer feel. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just crop off everything in my video to make sure that it ends right at 1. So I have all my fades set to there. I'm just going to actually go ahead and use the razor and split everything off here at the very end. Oops. There we go. So now I can just go and delete all these little pieces that are left over. And now it all ends right at 1. Alright, when you're done with everything, you'll always just save your file, and then you can go to export, or you can just do Control M. Either way, I am going to export mine at 1080 and the format H.264, and I'm going to rename mine to Final Skate Video, and I'm going to make sure that it exports into my folder where I have the video, and then just press export.
What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?
I think it would be all his perspective on whether or not he's a skateboarder. He could be either a fan of skateboarding or an actual skateboarder.
If you put in enough time to learn how to do pretty proper kickflip or decent kickflip, that means you really committed some real hours to this. In my heart, in my mind, I think that makes you a skater.
I think you have to have a love for it.
I love skateboarding, it's my life. Just be stubborn and keep trying to push it. You're a skater. Extreme joy, and he has nothing to gain from it other than just the joy of it.
Are you a skateboarder out there? What makes a skateboarder a skateboarder?